Killian Medex dreams of becoming a professional bodybuilder. He suffers from fits of anger and takes care of his grandfather. For dinner, Killian eats no less than 12 eggs and a hefty piece of meat. The walls and ceiling of his room are covered with posters of famous bodybuilders. Killian is tormented by migraines and nightmares. He hears different voices in his head. Recently, he promised the nurses that he would crack open their skulls and drink their brains like soup. The big guy injects himself with steroids and spends all his free time in the gym. He dreams of meeting bodybuilding star Brad Vanderhorn and constantly writes him letters. Before the competition, Killian was so nervous that he threw up, but the athlete pulled himself together, was inspired by his own radiant smile, and went on stage. He tried harder than everyone else, showing off his magnificent muscles. But it seemed that the judges did not appreciate it and pushed him to the edge of the stage. Killian works and shops at the local supermarket. He likes the cashier, Jesse. Too bad their shifts never coincide.
I just had a competition, actually. Finished 6th.
Nice. Oh.
Killian dreams that one day his photo will be printed on the cover of a magazine. He hesitated for a long time to take the first step, but simply walked out of the store, then still returned and asked Jesse out on a date. Right away, he decided that she must have a boyfriend, apologized, and walked away. The girl, however, did not have time to say a single word. Killian wanted to shoot a video about himself and uploaded it to YouTube. He talked about who he was and showed his body. At some point, Killian was in so much pain that he fell to the floor. He had to start all over again. Unfortunately, the commenters did not spare Killian and wished him the worst. In addition to steroids, our hero also dabbles with illegal substances to make his workouts more fun. Killian called the painters who, in his opinion, had not painted their house well enough and demanded that they apply another coat of paint. But when they refused, Killian threatened that he would come over himself and paint their skull. But they told him off.
Why'd you fuck yourself?
Killian immediately jumped into his car and went to settle things. The store was already closed. Then Killian broke through the door with his own body and began smashing everything around. Because of a sudden fit of severe pain, he doubled over. The athlete stumbled back into the store, cut himself with broken glass, and somehow managed to leave the crime scene. However, it all ended in a car accident. At the hospital, Killian was examined and given a discouraging verdict. He was taking substances that were far too strong. Because of this, his blood pressure was extremely high, and soon his internal organs would begin to fail. In addition, tumors were found in his liver that needed to be removed urgently. But Killian refused the operation so that there would be no scars. After all, he was a bodybuilder. In the evening, Killian simply escaped from the hospital and continued taking steroids. After all, he had a problem. His legs simply would not grow. The man consumed 6,000 calories a day, but his mass still would not increase. Killian asked the internet how to please people, and he received a useful piece of advice. He should smile more. At work, the big guy spat in a pie of a customer he did not like. One day, Jessie herself called Killian and said that she accepted his offer to go out somewhere. The jock washed, shaved, dressed up, and got himself ready for the date. The man was completely stunned when Jessie touched his face, and he blushed, though it was not noticeable. Kian admitted that he went to the store only during Jessie's shifts just to see her. By the way, she also liked him and thought he was sweet. The conversation started off well, but then Killian suddenly mumbled that his father had died, and his mother had also died. She had been killed by his dad, after which he shot himself. He also confessed that Jessie looked like his mother. After that, Killian ordered 7 dishes from the menu, and Jessie began to suspect that she had made a huge mistake by going on a date with this strange guy. Killian was very surprised that Jessie did not know who Brad Vanderhorn was. He was a 2-time Mr. Olympia. How could someone not know such a person? Did Jessie even know anyone at all?
Really hot in here.
When the girl asked, "What kind of music do you listen to?" the man kept talking about the Mr. Olympia title. Killian talked about his delts and biceps, about his training, his sets, and the growth of his muscles. Poor Jessie became completely discouraged when Killian started talking about nausea attacks during workouts. The girl said she would step away to the restroom. In reality, she ran away from the restaurant and asked the waitresses to tell Killian that she would not be coming back. The jock was upset and ordered a pile of fast food and desserts on top. He kept writing to Vanderhorn and telling him everything about his personal life. Today, Killian was going to another competition. However, men whose store he had recently trashed dragged him out of his car. Killian fought back as best he could, but in the end, they beat him with an iron pipe and kicked him with their feet. Bloody and battered, the bodybuilder groaned in pain and held his broken ribs. Nevertheless, he immediately got back into the car, because Killian still needed to get to the competition. The crazed bodybuilder, while on the move, stripped off his clothes and started lashing out at those around him so they would let him through. Everyone realized this guy was insane, so they did not try to stop him from going on stage, especially since his name was being announced right then. The judges and the audience were shocked to see the beaten contestant. Swollen and covered in blood, Killian began switching poses. He was trembling from the pain and his face was streaming with tears. In the end, his body could not take it and the man lost consciousness. Killian woke up in a bathtub filled with ice. The recording of his performance immediately appeared on the internet. Enraged, the jock destroyed all videotapes of the bodybuilding performances and raided the refrigerator. Afterward, he ripped the posters from the walls and collapsed exhausted, falling asleep on the floor. To his lawyer consultant, Killian lied that he was dating Jessie. He also claimed that he had supposedly been photographed for the cover of a magazine. Everything was fine in his life. In the evening, Killian picked up a call girl. However, he preferred to show the woman his body rather than look at her. And then the jock experienced the main side effect of taking steroids, a decrease in male strength. With customers, Killian began to behave strangely. He had been absent from work for a whole week and a half. Customers were complaining about him, and other employees felt uncomfortable working with him, so the manager would have to fire him, since he scared everyone. The man complained that he had nothing to support his grandfather with, while his name and image brought recognition to their company. The manager realized that Killian was really losing his mind.
Your name and likeness? What the hell is the matter with you, son?
A little more, and Killian would definitely have cracked his boss's skull. One day, the jock was having lunch in a cafe when he saw one of his offenders. That man had come there with his family. Killian told the children that their dad had cracked his skull with an iron pipe. Then he gave the boy advice not to drink Coca-Cola, otherwise he would get fat, and nobody likes fat people. Killian went back to his seat, gulped down a glass of cola, and ordered everyone not to look at him. He shouted loudly, scaring the visitors. Killian still lost his temper and decided to interact with the patrons. He insulted everyone sitting in the hall, and then for some time talked to himself. After that, he went outside and smashed the window of a car with his head. By that time, the cops had arrived. They restrained the hooligan, beat him with batons, and sprayed his face with pepper spray. Suddenly, Killian began to feel ill. The cops got scared that he might die and called an ambulance. Killian had broken several laws, and he also owed $1,200 to the owner of the smashed car. The man realized that he was broken, so he said goodbye to his lawyer and thanked the woman for trying to help him. Killian got into his car and thought about how fun it would be to shoot everyone around. Soon, packages with various parts started arriving for him, parts from which Killian assembled an assault rifle. Then his arsenal grew with a shotgun, a pistol, and lots of ammunition. At night, the man started going to nightclubs, showing off his practiced poses there. And during the day, he trained with his rifle. It seemed that tragedy was inevitable, but one day the phone rang. Killian received a call from Brad Vanderhorn himself, his idol, to whom the bodybuilder had written hundreds of letters. The champion would come here in a week. Why not meet and talk? Killian attended Brad's photo shoot and became passionate about bodybuilding again. Moreover, the champion showered him with compliments. Brad even allowed the fan to touch his sculpted abs. The champion asked again if he really was his #1 fan.
Yes.
In general, Vanderhorn became closer with his biggest fan, and it seemed that Killian did not particularly like this. While Mr. Olympia was talking on the phone with his wife and children, Killian quickly slipped out of his trailer, but then he began calling Brad, trying to sort out their relationship. After all, he had only wanted friendship, but Brad had dragged him into all this. Killian hoped that Brad would still call him back. At the club, a suspicious guy came up to the Hulk and offered to get high in the restroom. The guy was talking nonsense. It seemed that he hated everyone in the world. Killian had a weapon, and he suggested solving the problem radically. It was time to finish off the enemies once and for all. The guy, without hesitation, agreed. Fortunately today, Killian did not kill anyone. But he left a message for Brad and promised that he would definitely take someone out. In the evening, Killian, armed with a shotgun, broke into the house of some man. This man had judged the competition in which the jock had participated. Back then, the man had not liked his thigh bicep, which turned out to be very offensive. The judge promised that he would write to the commission, but it was already too late. Killian ordered the man to strip down to his underwear, then turned on some music and commanded the judge to show his muscles, front double biceps, side triceps, flex, and do not forget to smile. Smile with all your might. Killian told the hostage to kneel before him. The man screamed and begged not to be killed. Killian simply stood up and left. The jock once again turned to the internet and asked what one should do to be remembered. Be bold and change history, the search engine suggested. Killian was inspired by these words. He wrote on the wall, Killian Medex was here. He took a bag of weapons and headed to Brad Vanderhorn's performance. The bodybuilder was on stage when Killian pulled a rifle out of his bag and walked toward him. For some time, the man watched his idol, and then he opened fire. Each shot was accompanied by flashes of memories from the past. Killian once again saw his parents, himself as a child, and his grandfather. He remembered his performance on stage and came to his senses. He had not yet crossed the line. Killian changed his mind about shooting and instead hurried back home. The man burst into tears and hugged his grandfather. It is all right, the old man comforted him. We have each other. In the morning, Killian dismantled all his weapons and threw the bag away near the railroad tracks. Returning home, the man flushed all the substances down the toilet and took a picture in the garage. He hung his image on the wall. Killian was certain that very soon absolutely everyone would know his name, know who he was. That is where the film ends. Thank you for watching.